Welcome to Reverb Roundtable, a weekly show that brings the brightest creative minds and digital producers in sports, entertainment, politics, news, and more to share their stories and strategies that will help you become a better leader and creator. This podcast is hosted by Clark Campbell, the founder and CEO of Reverb Agency, an event media production company where the goal is always to make great events look great online. On today's episode, we are joined by Sean Specie, the Chief Strategy Officer at Elevate Experiences, to talk about all things Clubhouse. Now, if you've not heard of Clubhouse, it's an invite-only app that is fully audio-based. Anyone can set up a room and anyone can jump into the room to listen to a conversation, which has pretty much opened up the door to be in the same space listening to or even on stage talking with leaders you otherwise never would have an opportunity to engage with. So let's jump in and see what Sean has to teach us about Clubhouse.
Tessa, thank you so much once again. As you just heard, we are here with the one and only Sean from Elevate Experiences. Sean, thank you so much for joining us today, my man.
It's a pleasure. I'm so glad to be here with you guys, be here with you virtually, right? So Here we are. Let's do the thing.
Let's do the thing.
Did you see the Google ad as we get started? The virtual, like, let's cancel the word. Oh, that's not the right way to say it. Let's get rid of the word virtual.
Clark's on cancel culture. Clark's on cancel culture.
That is not what I was saying. Did you see
Clark said cancel virtual events. Google ad? I haven't seen the Google ad either.
It is a Google ad.
I haven't seen it. It's and so what's really interesting to me, like, just to touch on that topic, for example, like, because in the events industry, and I'm sure you guys know this, there's a bunch of people that are talking about live or virtual or hybrid or all of the terms. Yep. And I kind of came to the realization, like, it doesn't matter what I call it. It only matters what people, like the common people, know it as. So it's cool that Google wants to rewrite it, but I don't know if they're going to be able to. It's because it's like they're not going to be able to reach everyone. So that's just like a side note.
Come on,
hypothesis from Sean's brain that I've been thinking about for a while now.
We had an amazing conversation with, I guess I don't know, is he your boss? Are you co-partners and equals? I don't know.
Boss. The boss Billy Bowie over at Elevate.
Boss Billy Bowie. Oh man. We had a fascinating conversation with him and we were like, hey, let's talk to Sean. Billy, don't talk to us about Clubhouse. You know nothing about Clubhouse. Let's talk to the expert about Clubhouse. So I think, Will, are we going to talk about that today? I think that's what we're going to talk about.
I think today is a deep dive into Clubhouse, what it is doing right now, specifically on its platform, but then also maybe even a little bit how it's changing some other platforms. And then also my personal question, which is this even new at all? Because I'm pretty sure the first communication system was just audio. So it's pretty funny how I think we're going backwards a little
Going
bit.
back.
So Sean, give us a little introduction about how you found out about Clubhouse and your kind of first experiences on it.
Yeah, it's funny that you guys like paused Billy from talking about it, and he was probably jealous that I get to, because Billy introduced me to Clubhouse. It was like right back, I think it was actually like right back, it was like January 3rd, and it was a Monday or January 3rd or 5th, somewhere around there, and we were just getting back from the New Year's holidays time, and Billy comes in and he's like, y'all, I have spent like 16 hours over the last 2 days on this new app called Clubhouse. And I was like, I had seen some people tweet about it. And I was like, I just don't believe that you're spending that much time on it. And he was so amped about it. And then he sent me like, it was back when you only had like one invite. Now I've got 7. So if there's someone that's listening, reach out to me. I can get you on the app. But you would get like one invite at a time, and he passed it off to someone else. I was like, you didn't even think about inviting me? I gave him a hard time about it. And then he did. Like, he gave me his next invite, to shout out and credit to him. But he introduced me to it, and it was fun. It's funny. I was actually reading someone else's like Twitter comment about it, and how there's kind of like there's an either or that's happening. Some people have an amazing first experience and some people have an awful one. And I had a great one because I got on the app and Billy basically like welcomed me in a room, and I think one more person jumped in, and he basically walked me through like, hey, here's where to push the button, here's what to do here. And he walked me through it. So that was my introduction, was with Billy.
Amazing. I remember Clark and I were actually at a dinner when he got on Clubhouse, and then I think this was like, we were late to the game. So I think he had 7. So he invited like everyone at the table. We hop on and Clark, how long was it until we ended up on a Clubhouse with Billy? It was like that week, right?
Yeah, it was very soon. Mm-hmm.
It was that week, and he was talking about how he was spending
crash course.
12 plus hours a day.
Sean was
there too. Yeah. And on that, I said podcast because that's what Clubhouse feels right? It's not a podcast. On Clubhouse, he was like, oh, guys, I'm spending like 12 plus hours a day on here. And I was side texting Clark. I was like, does Clubhouse sound like a cocaine addiction to you? Because everyone I've heard talk about it talks about how they don't do any work anymore because all they do is sit on Clubhouses all day. They can't stop. They're losing sleep over it. I was like, everyone is on this.
I have a really important question. So for all, that sounded real dramatic. For all of the listeners, the millions and millions of listeners today and viewers that are kind of like, yeah, I've heard about it, but I don't have time for something like that. Hold on.
Let's set the tone.
Sean, give me the elevator pitch. Cause I think Clubhouse is like the thing that the people do with the voice, you know how people send voice text? Like they send, like, I don't know.
You're giving me a hard, before we hit record, you're giving me a hard time. Like, oh, he's one of those guys.
He's one of those guys. Is it like that? Like, what in the world is Clubhouse anyways? How does it give us an elevator 5-year-old pitch on what Clubhouse is?
Yeah. So the elevator 5-year-old pitch for this is it's an app that allows you to talk to people in in conference rooms at any point in the time in the day. There's always rooms happening.
It's a conference call. So it's like that old big black piece of hardware that's set on the conference room table from like the early 2000s because they made it digital and then it's just a big conference call. Is that all it is?
It's that, except for you're not carrying around this like awkwardly shaped triangle piece of equipment that plugs into is hardwired into your table.
and you've got all these little features that you can like interact with people, like clap and raise your hand or stuff and stuff like that, right?
Well, and it's interesting, like kind of, right? That's how people are using it. But the way that people clap is by muting and unmuting themselves. That's the only thing that they have access to right now. And then I know that Twitter Spaces is a competitor that they're in beta with right now. And they actually have like an emojis reaction function. Ooh. So like if you're in the audience, you can hit like the thumbs up button or the clap emoji or the like emoji, something like that. So I'm sure that they're probably going to interact later with it. You can interact with people by changing your profile picture. That's kind of a fun way to do it because you can just do it constantly. I mean, I may or may not keep an entire folder on my phone of different headshots of myself or different pictures that I can show people.
This is great.
Sean, we were talking beforehand, and while we know a decent little bit about Clubhouse, not nearly as much as these experts though here at Elevate, tell me, how is this different from Zoom without video? Like how is it different either in technical build of the platform, like how is the platform built different, or simply just how it's being utilized differently?
Yeah, I think it's being utilized differently because imagine, so I got to go to South by Southwest in 2019. Billy took us on our leadership team, and South by Southwest, you would literally be walking through the streets of Austin, Texas, in downtown Austin, and we would have an app on our phone that would direct us to where we would go, and we would have to scan our badge, and people would be checking to make sure that we were actually like ticket holders to get in the doors. So imagine that, but it's an audio version and you don't have to have a ticket to get in the door of the conference. And he's interviewing the co-founders of Clubhouse about how they built Clubhouse, and they're going to be on Clubhouse, and it's going to be a recording for their podcast. And so literally you can just, when you open the app, it's what they call the hallway. So you just scroll through rooms, and it's a lot like what we did at South by Southwest, where you would walk down the streets and you would look for interesting signs that says, like one of them we went to was the LinkedIn house, where they would do presentations about LinkedIn, where they're coming from. So, but now you don't have to have a ticket. Now, I'm sure that phase is coming where sometimes you might have to have a ticket. I think that's going to be one form of monetization that they roll out, which they actually just yesterday, everyone on Clubhouse was freaking out because they rolled out monetization. You can like directly pay creators on Clubhouse. Wow. That's a brand new feature that just rolled out yesterday. So
I'm getting on right now. Hold on. Let me get on. I got to make some money.
So instead of Zoom or even a conference call, right? Where it's like, I'm calling you, I'm connecting us. It is very direct. It's very intentional. This is open. So it's a hallway and you can walk into any of the rooms.
It's open. So you can do closed rooms that are just you and whoever you select. That are basically, they have to follow you to invite them. Okay. Or you can do a closed room within a club, which now they opened it up a couple weeks ago to where literally anyone in the world can create a club. I think maybe you have to be on for more than 3 weeks. I'm not quite sure of that, but you can literally anyone can create a club. And then you can create an open room, which is just open to the public. And the open to the public, you can scroll through, and it depends on what the rooms that you see depend on who you follow, the clubs you follow. And then there's also an explore button where you can just scroll through and just see random ones.
Hey, William, I am so thrilled with our podcast because I don't have to go like listen to other podcasts or read other books. I can just come here and learn everything I need to know about the internet. Like, you have taught me so much already, Sean. Like I'm ready to tackle Clubhouse this morning. We listen to Don Miller's podcast a lot, and he always jokes on it. He's like, I host this podcast just to get free coaching that I don't have to pay for. And this is basically the exact same thing.
It's so true. It's so true. Clubhouse provides an amazing access to people and information. Like,
is that their one-liner?
Because here's the interesting thing.
They're going to steal it.
Because here's the interesting thing is that if Donald Miller were to record on the podcast, his podcast in the app, which some people are doing now, you would, if you're an audience listener, you get to listen while he's recording it. And then you could potentially raise your hand and ask him a question or ask whoever he's interviewing a question. So it's really interesting.
I'm making a note on this. I want to come back to this though. I want to come back to how to record inside of Clubhouse, but we'll save that for later. Amazing. Okay, Sean. So there's an immense amount of opportunity on podcast. How does this opportunity kind of flow to the individual? So we know that there's a lot of knowledge that can be consumed. You can find yourself in crazy situations. I've heard a lot of stories about people just falling into conversations with Gary Vee or Grant Cardone or so many different people.
He meant Clubhouse, not podcast. He meant Clubhouse. Amazing opportunity.
I'm telling you, all these things are melding in my mind. I got to figure out how to distinctively take them apart.
Amazing opportunity on Clubhouse.
Is there opportunity for networking on there as well? What's the opportunity to the individual pass knowledge?
So there's a bunch of different opportunities, but specifically to touch on the networking one first. So I call Clubhouse a networking accelerator, right? And the reason why is, for example, so COVID, I think has played a small part into it, having exponential growth over the last couple of months. But I was in a room with a couple of other people on Clubhouse. And when I say in a room, I mean on Clubhouse when we're talking about this conversation. And there's a woman named Dahlia. Is it Dahlia? I think it was Dahlia. She basically told me how one of the reasons why she has kind of latched onto Clubhouse is because of COVID. She wasn't able to go out to networking events or go out to bars with her friends and just meet people. And Clubhouse allows you to do that based upon the types of conversations that you want to insert yourself into, because you can scroll through there and see that someone's talking about Instagram marketing. You can click on the room, start listening to it. And then if they allow you to ask questions, you can raise your hand and start to ask a question or talk with them. So the networking there is amazing. I've met people from DC. I've met people from New York. I've met tons of people from London, and it's specifically in the events industry, those places also. And then, so that's one side of it, is the access to just networking. And then the other side,
Sean, before you move past that, have you been able to grow Elevate's business through this?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So specifically, I mentioned I met someone in DC. So within the first 2 months of being on the app, I had 2 new conversations, and I took a current relationship with someone to Clubhouse, and it resulted in $75,000 worth of revenue conversations for our business.
Let's go.
Yeah. So the 2 conversations here, what's funny is, one night it was before the national championship game. I opened up a random room just by myself. I think I had 150 followers or something like that. And it was about college football. And a woman's 10-month-old son accidentally hit the notification on her phone. And so she accidentally dropped into my room. And it turned out that she was an event planner in Orlando. We had a great conversation that had nothing to do with football, and everything to do with just who she was and events.
Crazy.
We got into a Zoom call later that week. And then about a month later, she allowed us to pitch on over $30,000 worth of projects. So that was just one conversation. And
so the most important part of that is, are you giving that kid a 5%, 3% finder's fee for instigating that relationship?
The referral fee. Yeah. Well, and like, there's a bunch of nuances to it. And there's kind of like this either or mentality sometimes that people talk about of like, is it the big rooms or the small rooms? Which one are better? And I tell people, like, don't be afraid to open up a Clubhouse room by yourself, or at least with one other person, and have a conversation with 5 people. I was in a different Clubhouse room one time, and it was 9 people. And it was like, I think they were like, it started off because these 2 guys named Brian, they were debating Brian with an I or Brian with a Y. And there was just kind of an inside joke. And it turned out that there was 9 of us in there. And I click on one of these dudes' profiles, this guy named Brian Kramer. And I click on his Twitter account, which is connected, and he's got like 185,000 followers on Twitter. And I was like, hold up. I was like, wait, who is this guy? And he's like a TEDx speaker. He wrote the book about marketing called Human to Human. And we were just sitting there having a casual conversation. It was amazing.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Sean, one of the things that I've heard, and I want you to hit on this a little bit more, is that you can't fake it on this platform. Like, you can't be super poised all the time. You can't pre-craft your sentences. And so a lot of the things that people do on other platforms aren't really transferable to when there's zero post-production. You can't clean up your acts. Like, it's just all about in the moment. Like right here on this podcast, if I said something totally wild, or I messed up, or I mumbled really badly, like, we can go take it out. That's just not the same game inside a Clubhouse. I'm assuming that when you find yourself in situations either where you're in really small rooms to where it's like, oh my gosh, like, there's no one to help cover up my mistake. If I like say something weird or whatnot, like, it's going to sustain the awkwardness because there's only 2 other people in here. Or on the total inverse, there is 20,000 people listening into this room. And if I say something dumb to Grant Cardone, I'm going to look like a fool. Like, talk to me about that. There seems to be, like, it seems like you have to have a lot of confidence to do well on this app.
You can. So yes and no. Like, one of the first statements that you said was that you can't fake it. I would argue that I think that there are people who are faking it, and I think that they're being found out.
Break it down for me.
I think that it reveals, because it's kind of like having a one-on-one phone conversation with someone sometimes, right? Like, because that's literally sometimes what you're dropping into is you hear one person talking to the other sometime, and you have to take everything with a grain of salt and listen to someone giving someone else advice. And you have to ask, well, and you have to put it into context and say, okay, is this advice applicable to my situation? And even, is this advice even good? Because does this person know what they're talking about? Yeah. So it really, like, it requires people to do a little bit more research rather than just looking at the number of followers. For example, so I'm in a marketing community with a bunch of other like CMOs and marketers and B2B people. And there's a guy named Daryl Prale, and he's the CMO at Vanilla, or Chief Revenue Officer or CMO at Vanilla Soft. And me and him jumped, like, I invited him into Clubhouse, and we had a great conversation. And I think he had like 140 followers at the time. But he's the CMO of like this major company, this like competitor to these other big tech companies. Like, he's kind of a big deal. But it was maybe 20 people in the room because of like the number, because of the way that the algorithm works, right? And some people just don't know who these people are. So I always recommend to people, like, be wary as to who you follow just because of their numbers. Like, listen to what they're actually saying. And if it resonates with you, then sure, give them a follow. But don't just follow people just because they've got big numbers or they've got like whatever it is, because it really is interesting, like the dynamic that's there. So as far as like, you can't fake it. To some degree, I don't think you can. Just like right now, like, I can't fake like knowing all about Clubhouse if I don't actually know it, right? Like, I've been using Clubhouse literally.
You've already proved
daily.
yourself, Sean. You've already proved yourself.
He says that. If he has a teleprompter up in the background where he's just reading notes, he's totally faking it right now.
Yeah. Well, but how can you tell? right?
Right.
How can you tell that I haven't faked all of this knowledge? It's because of stories. It's because of statistics. It's because of like the tone of my voice. You can hear it in my voice that I'm kind of excited about it, that I kind of love it. So yeah.
Before we get into like what you're creating, because we've heard you're cooking something in the kitchen.
I am.
It's going to be delicious. Tell us like really the big either standout differences between the Twitter platform that's a competitor and the Instagram thing that's a competitor. Tell us like why Clubhouse versus Twitter, Instagram, whatever they call those rooms. I know you said them, but
Spaces, I think.
Spaces.
Yep.
This is why I'm asking. It's a personal question. Like I'm sitting here thinking, I'm listening to you. I'm like, I don't need to go do this. I just need to get in these rooms and talk to people in the event media creation space. Should I do it on Twitter? Is there nobody on Twitter? Is it easiest to innovate on Instagram? Where should I go? Why does it matter between all three?
Yeah. So why does it matter between all three? I think that Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, I think all of them would be dumb enough. I think they would be dumb not to try to imitate it.
Right.
Because they're all like social media, they're all in the attention business, right?
Correct.
Like, so Gary Vee talks about like attention is their currency.
Correct.
And right now there's a statistic. So there's a guy named Gary Henderson who Billy knows, that I know that y'all interviewed Billy. And he has a stat. There's like these like kind of like, I don't know if they're not sketchy, but they're just not affiliated platforms where you can track analytics in Clubhouse. And he's been sharing that the average listener is in a room listening for between 11 and 14 minutes.
Wow.
And if you think about like Twitter, and scrolling, like someone's not going to sit there and read a tweet for 11 to 14 minutes.
Correct.
They're not going to look at a picture on Instagram for 11 to 14 minutes, unless it's like this like mind-blowing puzzle. Maybe that should be a thing. The attention is one thing. And then number two is Clubhouse it's literally like social audio is what they're classifying it as. And so it's just talking to people, and you get to hear the emotion in their voice. You get to hear the pain in their story. You get to hear the excitement in their triumph. So it literally is like being social, and we are all social animals. And I think that COVID has kind of like confined us again to not meeting people. So it allows you to meet new people, hear their interesting story, learn from them, and then as well as connect with them. So,
but if I was I'm going to clarify it really fast, but if I'm an entrepreneur and I need to know where to go, if I had to choose between the three, which one? I'm telling you, I need counseling. Coach me, Sean. Do I go to Clubhouse, Twitter,
Clark
or
needs
Instagram?
Those $75,000 deals that you're talking about. Where is he going? Where's he going?
Where should I go?
So when you think of, let me ask you this then. When you think of posting a picture, what platform do you think of?
Instagram.
Instagram, yeah.
I think of Instagram. When you think of writing a short statement, like
Twitter.
A very short line of text.
I see where you're going, Sean. I see where you're going.
Yeah.
No, I get that.
And if you're thinking about getting on right now, so Twitter is in like Uber beta, where like they're allowing some people to do it. There's a couple people that I follow that have been doing it. So I've been able to like drop in as the audience member. I don't have access to Twitter Spaces. LinkedIn is even more beta, where they're just like with their, I don't even know if they're even doing it with their team yet. Facebook is the same way.
Great info.
So, but Clubhouse already has 16 million plus people that have access to it. Yeah. And that have downloaded the app. And so I don't know how many daily users they have, but Clubhouse is like the place to go right now.
Okay.
And I think it's going to be the place to stay in the future, because here's the thing is like the more features a platform rolls out, the more complicated their app has to be. And I don't know about y'all, but I don't like being confused as to where something is on an app. So
that's great. That answered my question. That is, and I honestly was asking it because I think other people might be curious too. Like, I don't want another app on my phone, dude. I need sorry. I have Vibes coffee this morning. So
yes.
We have Vibes coffee.
Hey, look at you guys both had it. Nice
Vibes. Okay. So I'm trying to channel my vibes this morning. Anyways,
and you talked about
before we get. Yeah, go, Sean.
Well, I was going to say, so you talked about the entrepreneur space, and I briefly touched on Gary Vee, right? So Gary Vee he's accredited with this like system of just sharing content constantly. But I actually think one of the original people that has been doing this for 25 years now is Dave Ramsey, because he literally, so this was his system. He wrote a book that taught you how to get out of debt. And then every day for 25 years during the workday, for 3 hours, he had a radio show where he would just take people's questions and he would share principles from his book and stories from people actually doing it.
Such a good point.
And so here's the thing about social audio with Clubhouse is you don't have to approach a radio station anymore.
Wow.
And you don't have to on a radio, the downside of like a radio station is you would have to say, hey, text this number to this thing. Instead, you can just say, hey, click on my Instagram and connect with and send me a DM, or click on my Instagram and click on the link in my bio. So it's a lot easier to access. And Clubhouse, literally anybody right now, you can host a daily talk show for 3 hours if you want to, where you just add value to people, to content, and you can build a multi-million-dollar business with, I think he's got over 800 people working for him now. Dave Ramsey does.
Yep.
But he's been doing it consistently, like 3 hours a day for 25 years now.
It's crazy.
So if you're an entrepreneur and you want to get into the space, it's a great way to do it.
Which, by the way, Dave Ramsey's little snippets from his show are probably some of my favorite Instagram content right now, because it's so funny to hear the individual stories. Because you hear like 25-year-old making $60K a month. What does he do with it? But then you also hear like 40-year-old and $2 million in debt. What does he do? It's really fun. Before we get to some of the things that you're building, Sean, that we're really excited to hear, and we'll kind of hold that to the end. When I first got on the platform, I saw that there was, these different titles. Either you're like in attendance, which I think is just a guest, or you're a moderator, or you're on the stage as a speaker. And I just kind of thought moderator was basically like the admin of the chat, essentially. But come to find out, there's like a whole thing about moderation. And then there's ways you can do it. Like, a lot of people do it poorly. And what I've been told is the key to a successful room is a great moderator. So break down to me kind of the different roles, quote unquote, that are happening on this platform. And then inside of like moderation specifically, like what makes a great moderator so that I can be a great moderator.
So the different roles, to touch on that before I go to moderator, which is like a whole thing. Let me not get on my soapbox yet, right? Yeah. So the different roles is, if you join the app and you download Clubhouse, you get in and you click into a room, it's kind of like walking into the back of a room of a conference room where the conversation's already happening. Right. And so you're literally just in the audience listening to other people that are on the stage. There is kind of this, that's one piece. Then the app literally, like in the room, is segmented into 3 different places. There's the audience. There's a section of people that are followed by the speakers. So if you know someone that's on there and they follow you and you jump in, then you're still in the audience, but you're in the followed by speakers section. And then there's the stage.
Like a VIP section at a concert. It's like, I'm still attending the concert, but I'm VIP, baby.
It's kind of, I'm curious as to why they created that, because it almost does segment into like a VIP section. Like it just, let's be real, it just does. So it's
I dropped into one of Billy's the other day, and I was like, man, I'm so much cooler than the rest of the people in here because I'm followed by the speaker.
Well, it is kind of interesting too, though, because like, so Justin Bieber was on Clubhouse, I think like last week, talking about his new album that just dropped. And so then there's a followed by speakers section, and it was fairly small compared to the room that he was in. And I was like, oh, this is actually kind of interesting to see who are these people? Like, who are they following? So
interesting.
It's an interesting way to discover new people. So then there's the stage, and then in the stage, there's a speaker who is not a moderator. The moderator has this like little green circle, and anybody who's a moderator in a room on Clubhouse, they can remove people from the stage. They can mute people. They can close the room. They can move other moderators into the audience and then kick them out of the room. So there's a bunch more functions that a moderator gets. but that's just the moderator like function, quote unquote. And then what you'll find is when you jump into the room, like some rooms that are like the larger rooms, right now the little moderator icon is basically being used as like a verified, because there is no verified on Clubhouse. And so some people are using it to basically like give it to their friends or give it to other people that they want to stick around in their room, or as like they use it as a sign of respect. So there's this whole like subculture that's happening in Clubhouse with that thing. But yeah, that's the basic functions of the app. And then when you're in the room, there's usually one person who's like guiding the conversation. And that's what I would call the true moderator.
And so with that, like Gary Henderson is his name, right?
Yeah.
Gary Henderson, from what I'm understanding and known, is like the guide to moderators. Like he's the G, he's the GOAT or whatever. And so with that, like, what does he do that sets him apart as a moderator? Like, what is he doing in a room that makes him so great at that, that other people are emulating?
Great question.
Yeah. So he is definitely known on Clubhouse. I haven't known him to even call himself, or other people to call him that, like the guide to moderators. He's a great example though, because his thing right now is he's focusing on how can people monetize on Clubhouse, at least to my knowledge. He might be working on something about moderating. But when you listen to him, he's very clear with his words. He's very decisive with how he runs his rooms. He likes to test things out, which is one of the beautiful things about Clubhouse. There's not too many parameters, and it's kind of up to us to decide how do we want to do something, which is really fun, and it allows you to be creative. And then he's testing things out. Like I know that he's testing out, like you can go to, I think it's gary.club/poll or something like that. And then while you're in the room, you'd have to have a separate device or pull up Safari on your phone or something. And then you can take a poll in the conversation. So I love that he's testing out these different things. And then he's definitely like, he's using it for lead gen for his business so that he can coach other people how to like basically get new leads on business, because he's doing it also.
Rad. Okay. So I have one more question.
Sure.
We paused on it earlier. I said I want to save it to the end. I know we got some stuff that we want to talk about after this, but you mentioned recording in Clubhouse. Now, to my knowledge, there's not like a record this room button. Nope. Maybe that's coming. Maybe it's not. I don't know. But how are you recording in Clubhouse so that next time we talk to you, we can do this podcast on Clubhouse and then record it?
Yep.
Well, that's an amazing question. So I'm not personally recording. I haven't done it yet. So number one is there's actually like in the terms and guidelines, you can read it for yourself if you're listening to this or watching this, but it actually says like, hey, please don't record because it's against like the app policies, but they do allow it if you ask for permission in the app. If you get like verbal permission, and then sometimes people are putting it in the title, like a recording emoji, like a big red circle. Some people, they have this platform, like Billy actually bought one, and it's called a Rodecaster Pro, so that you can like integrate your phone and then integrate a nice microphone, and then you can record from the app, which is a popular podcasting recording device. You can use an iRig 2 from your phone, to my knowledge, to be able to help record also. And so I think that those two communicate well together. And then so that's just a couple of ways. Having a separate device in there, not just doing it because I created like a video for my YouTube channel and I accidentally hit record and dropped it into someone's room, and I got this big red notification that says no recording other people's conversations, and I was like, I'm so sorry, don't kick me out of the app. So
that's amazing. Well, and something you said there that if I'm not mistaken on the technicals of it, so like with an iRig 2 or whatever, you're actually recording the conversation, but with something like a Rodecaster, like Billy has set up, not only are you recording, you're also able to take like podcast mics like we're using right now and pipe that into the app, so that instead of using your Apple headphones or whatever, you're actually bringing in like a higher quality audio from your side too, right?
Yeah, definitely. And so I know that a lot of the audience for this podcast and the videos are going to be event professionals. And so not only can you record, but also you can pipe in other sounds also. So you can pipe in sound effects and have people cheering or people laughing, and you can have like crickets if no one answers a question, and you can get creative with it. So it's really fun to be able to do that as well. Yeah.
So get a Rodecaster, and then you can pipe in a soundboard and sound fantastic and record all at once.
For the sake of time, I have 2 questions. One is super simple, and the other is tell us about your course. But the first one is biggest mistake you have. Let's give you 3 words. Biggest mistake people are making on Clubhouse right now. In other words, hey people, if you're listening and you're going to go hop on Clubhouse, don't do this. Go.
In 3 words, I would say not raising hands in the app. So like if you're going to be on the app to generate leads, raise your hand to ask a question or raise your hand to give a tip on someone else's stage. And if you're just going to be there to listen, that it depends on what your intentions are for the app. If you just want to go to learn, then just go to learn. That's great. Yeah. But if you're there for lead gen and for networking and for like real human connection, just sitting in the audience isn't going to do it for you. Raise your hand.
Participate.
Yep. That's the name of the game with social.
There you go.
Social audio. Okay. So you are you're diving in and you're creating learning content for people. Why did you want to create a course for Clubhouse, and what is the course? Like, pitch us. I want to buy it.
Yeah, well, and before I even do that, so Billy has I helped him create his own course for it too. So a plug to his also. Billy created More Than a Microphone for communicators and for MCs years ago.
Oh, that's right.
And he just created, and I helped him create the content for his and help him flush out his ideas and put it into like a clear and succinct way called More Than a Microphone for Clubhouse moderators. So just a plug for him as well, because it's funny, like he and I work together, so we could be seen as competitors in this space, but like there's plenty of room in the sandbox. And so on the personal side, I'm building one. I have a club on Clubhouse called Moderate Like a Pro. And if you go to moderatelikeapro.com, it'll take you to the waiting list where I am working on an online course called Moderate Like a Pro Academy. And it's an online course. So it's fun because this is the first thing I've built personally for myself, like for my own brand, as you were, from scratch. So it's, I literally have a Google document that I have pulled up right here in front of me, and it's 22 pages now of Google Doc. I'm on slide deck 2. I literally I upgraded to the iPhone 12. I've got it here in my hand so that I can have better video quality, because I'm just going to record it on my iPhone. And the entire goal of it is to help people who have never been a moderator of a conversation, or maybe they have a little bit, but they might be intimidated by doing it on Clubhouse, and just equip them so that they can have great conversations and have a similar experience to what I've had, where you can make new networking conversations. Like I've got new vendors to reach out to from Clubhouse for events. I've got from Elevate, the $75,000 in conversations, like worth of conversations, like so that you can have that. And that was only in 2 months that I've experienced this, but I've been emceeing events for 10 years now. And so literally, like my experience, it's been so fun to dream about it and then to package it into this online course.
That's fascinating. And I am going to join the wait list as soon as I wrap here. I'm going to probably make some of the people on our team do the same. I mean, honestly, Sean, maybe a counseling session here real quick. Sean, I have not really been a big fan of Clubhouse. Because it pops up. No. It's being a little bit tongue in cheek here. Because it pops up on my phone all the time. I'm like, I don't have time for this. It's like a burden. It's not that I don't like the platform at all. It's like, I can't even post on LinkedIn when we have a podcast, much less join a Clubhouse room. And so it's really, really been helpful for me to hear you not only navigate this, but inspire me to pay more attention, and to remember that there are people in the space like Billy and Sean who are innovating, and they're committed to a quote. It's my favorite quote by Tom Rath, or Eric Hoffer. Oh my gosh, I don't remember who said it. It's one of the two. In times of change, learners inherit the earth, while the learned remain beautifully equipped to deal with a world that no longer exists. And I struggle with it sometimes because I'm like, I can't learn everything. I can't do everything. And I'm like, but I need to be paying attention to the things that matter, especially in our industry. And you have really lit my fire, and I'm excited to go learn more about Clubhouse. And I hope our listeners are too.
Well, I think one of my biggest takeaways too is that like, it's not just another content platform or even an event platform, which is super like, specific to us. It's also in a lot of ways a sales platform, just in regards to like your networking. And so from that networking, you can truly generate connections that lead to sales.
Yeah. It's like the world's biggest never ending convention. If you're into like, if networking and sales is your thing, like that's kind of what's happening.
And on that note, all the introverts in this podcast just stopped playing this. They just all went, no, thank you. It's so funny. Sean, by the way, will you pronounce your last name, since neither Will or I even gave it a shot?
I love that you called out the fact that I went, I'm not going to try to pronounce that.
Yeah, it's Specie. It's nothing fancy. Like, So I call my family endangered. We're the endangered species. There's actually only, I think, 8 of us, maybe 9. I got to count again, but yes.
Oh my goodness. Sean Specie. Thank you for doing that, Sean. And thank you for being on this episode. This has been, I'm telling you, this is like giving me so much like jazz to move on Clubhouse. Where can we find more about you, Elevate, and we know your course, repeat all those things. So you on social somewhere, don't give me all, but give me one of them.
The endangered species, I think.
Where can we find you online?
The simple and easiest way to get in touch, number one, with Elevate, because we do events, virtual, hybrid, live, and in person, and like Clubhouse events. We're hosting weekly rooms on Tuesdays and Thursdays at noon Eastern. Fantastic. And so you can go to elevate.tips, elevate.tips, and that'll take you to our link tree. Okay. And from there, you can literally find anywhere, our website, all that kind of thing. For me personally, I'm Sean Specie on like every platform. Basically, you can just search for me there.
Must be nice. Must be nice. Get all those handles.
Well, and I'm not at Sean Specie on everything, though. I actually changed. It's a different Clubhouse tactic, but I changed my handle to @eventsmc. But if you search for Sean Specie, you'll still find me. Oh yeah. That's a different strategy to talk about for another day. And then as far as the online course I'm creating, again, it's moderatelikeapro.com is the waiting list. Or if you're interested, I've got an entire like a 12-minute tutorial video on YouTube, blogs, and more videos. And you can just go to the website sean.club, SEAN.club, and it'll take you to my website.
Hey, producer Tessa, I think all of these are going to be in the show notes, won't they? We'll put them all in the show notes so that people can just click on them. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Will. Fantastic conversation. We will see you or hear you or talk to you next time on the Reverb Roundtable. We are grateful for your attention. We love and appreciate you, our entire audience. Until next time, have a great week.
Thank you so much for joining us this week on Reverb Roundtable. Don't forget to grab the show notes for the episode at rvrb.cc/podcast. And on that note, we'll see you next week on Reverb Roundtable.